Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. The game is finally here. I am Tyler Johnson. I am joined by a very special guest. Jordan Dalton is out sick tonight with stomach virus, so hoping JD gets better. My good friend, and he is a Michigan fan, I have to say, Dustin Seawright. Man, Dusty, how you doing tonight, man?
Not too bad. Exciting weekend.
It is exciting. We've been friends, man, ever since grade school. How firm thy friendship, indeed. So it's gonna be a fun conversation. I'm excited to get down into it. Before we do, I just want to take a second. Anyone who's watching us on Facebook or YouTube, if you are not subscribed to the channel, we ask that you just take a second and hit that subscribe button. It's free. You're entered in for exclusive giveaways available only to our YouTube subscribers. And also hit a like on the video. It helps the channel grow for not just the Scarlet and Gray podcast, but all shows on Network 216. So, Dustin, the first thing I kind of want to get into before we're going to hear a brief word from our sponsor is how nervous were you this weekend? Just everything that was going on. I mean, not just with Michigan, but I started to wonder at some point if we were even going to have an undefeated matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, it was honestly crazy. Michigan being that first game, it's set up for the weekend. Michigan and TCU both coming back basically in the fourth quarter to win it, and then, watching Ohio State and then Tennessee to blow a lead, and it was wild. It was a wild weekend, that's for sure. A lot of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of emotion indeed. And before we break down the game, that's what we're going to talk about for half the show. And we're also going to give our college football playoff predictions because a lot happened around the country that we need to discuss. But before we do want to take a second here from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. What's up, everybody? We know that daily fantasy never stops, and Network 216 is proud to be a partner with Underdog Fantasy. Very simple to use. All you have to do is go to underdogfantasy.com and you will just click the sign in button. You'll create an account if you haven't done so already. If you've not created an account, it'll ask you to enter code 216, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, live draft lobbies that you get to compete with you and your friends. It's no salary cap like DraftKings and FanDuel. You get to go to a draft lobby, pick the players you want, or you can do daily pick'ems, which give you access to all the NFL and NBA games for you to make your picks every single night. Again, go to underdogfantasy.com or use the Underdog Fantasy app on iOS or Android. Use code 216 to double your first deposit up to $100. Sign up today. And Dustin, I do want to hit briefly just on Michigan and the Illinois game. What were your takeaways from this game? I'm not going to break down Ohio State and Maryland a whole lot just because I want to really get into the conversation tonight. But what were some of your takeaways just from that game on Saturday? I mean, Illinois, credit where it's due, Brett Bielema has completely turned around that program.
100%. They're definitely a team to be reckoned with in the future. I mean, they're big, they're physical. I mean, they definitely were the best front seven Michigan's seen all year, and that's including Penn State. Yeah, they definitely have some solid kids on that team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Illinois has a lot of talent on the team. There's no doubt. Chase Brown really comes to mind. He'll be leaving after this year. He'll be probably a day 2, day 3 NFL draft pick. He's going to be a really good player. But Michigan did beat Illinois 19-17. Game-winning field goal is what it came down to for Jake Moody, but Michigan did escape. Ohio State at Maryland. I told JD last week this was not going to be an easy game. I recalled 2016 when Ohio State went to Maryland and won in overtime. I knew it wouldn't be an easy game. And that's exactly what it was. It was not an easy game by any means. Ohio State really struggled to run the ball. TreVeyon Henderson, not 100%. What were some of your takeaways from that game?
Well, and I was surprised at the final score of Ohio State. I mean, that Maryland gets the ball back, and Tua how do you say his name? I always forget his name. Tua
J,
Vailoa.
oh yeah, JT
He,
to Malola. I
yeah,
can't say it either. I just call him JT.
yeah. Nice pick six, or well, I guess fumble recovery in the end zone. I mean that was big. That was big.
Yeah. This game worried me all the way around. When I saw that Travion Henderson, after that first touchdown, got injured, I was like, okay, take him out. Don't play him. He's clearly not 100%, or he got re-injured. Like, there's no reason to play him. And in this game, again, I'm not going to talk a whole lot of Ohio State, Maryland, because I could do it all day, and there's just way more important things we have to get to since it's only one episode every week. Dalen Hayden came in, freshman running back, 27
Good.
carries, 146 yards, 5.4 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. Absolutely incredible football player. And
Yeah.
it just goes to show, and Michigan has the same thing because they have injured, and we're going to get into that. They have injuries to the tailback position. These teams are just loaded at running back. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
Dalen Hayden was a guy they were going to redshirt this year. And he is now, you can make the argument if he is, no, Mine Williams might be 100%. I might roll with the hot hand. I don't see any reason why you would not roll with the hot hand at this point because Dalen Hayden gives Ohio State something different. That vision that he displays as a freshman, he gives me personally J.K. Dobbins vibes. That's exactly who he reminds me of. He's a little bit smaller. He's not as stocky as J.K. was. Now, obviously, Dalen Hayden's a freshman. When you hit that Ohio State weight room, he'll only continue to put on
Oh
more
yeah.
weight. But I was really impressed with him. I know you. I know you were too. I mean, it's something Michigan really has to watch out for.
Oh yeah, the depth of that. I mean, just your guys' team in general. But I mean, running back. It's needed, and he definitely showed up to play against Maryland. Like you said, 240 yards. I mean, that's even though it's against Maryland, that's no slouch of a defense,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I mean, like you said, the depth is just it's huge. It's huge,
Mm-hmm.
especially down the stretch like this in late November. We're not playing, like UAB or like LSU played or this is still Big Ten play. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean depth, it's huge. It is.
Yeah, it is huge. And I'm going to move on. We're going to really break down and preview Ohio State versus Michigan here. I just want to get into some latest news that I saw. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is named a semifinalist for the Blinker-Off Award. That, for those
No
of you who
doubt.
don't know, that is college football's top wide receiver. I would say there's a good chance he wins that award. If he doesn't, I really have to question the people who vote because, I mean, I know you're a Michigan fan, but you know talent when you see it, and he's just special. I
Yeah,
mean, he's special, man.
there's not too many receivers better. I mean, the only big names that really come to my mind besides Marvin are, you know, the USC receiver,
Jordan Addison, who won it
Jordan
last year, yeah.
Addison, and then the TCU receiver, Johnson. Besides that, yeah, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is talented,
Mhm.
talented. And that's an understatement. I mean, he's good.
If you ever watch, and again, I don't expect you to watch a lot of Ohio State just because you're a Michigan fan, but I will say if you watch Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt call, and I'm sure they'll be on the call for Saturday's game, Joel Klatt is in love with Marvin
Oh,
Harrison
he is
Jr. It's actually like, and I get it because he's a great player. It's just kind of funny because he says, "Oh, Marvin Harrison within 5 years, he'll be best wide
the
receiver in the
best.
NFL."
Right. I
Like,
mean, you can't knock it though. I mean, that's not much of a bold statement. He's good, and he'll be in the NFL in what next year probably
year
after
after,
year
he's
after.
only a sophomore. That's what's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah, it's incredible. Over 1,000 yards already this year. Just a fantastic football player. Some other news that Jim Knowles has been nominated for the Broyles Award. And again, for those who don't know that, because a lot of people don't know that one, that is the award for the top assistant in the country. So Jim Knowles nominated for that. CJ Stroud will be a finalist for multiple awards, but we're not confirmed on which ones yet. But those are your Buckeye updates. And Dustin, we're here. This is the game that everyone circles on their calendar every single year. It's the biggest rivalry in college football, and if you're an SEC fan, you can say Alabama, Auburn all you want, doesn't come close. There is no rivalry that compares with Ohio State, Michigan. I'm just going back to last year because we didn't really getting to discuss it a whole lot, like personally, you and I. But just when you were going into that game last year, did you feel that Michigan truly had a chance to beat Ohio State, or did you think it would be like the last couple of years where Ohio, like it's close, and then Ohio State just finds a way to pull away?
Well, you always go into the game, no matter how bad your team is, thinking, okay, it's a rivalry game. We probably have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously last year, Michigan had a pretty good year. And I went in confident, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily think, well, I was at least hoping we weren't going to get blown out again, 62-39, whatever the score may be in the last, 18-19. But I was definitely confident. I had my worries just like this year. I think really more or less they're the same worries. I mean, passing the ball, that's the biggest issue we have. And if we're going to be able to solve it, last year we didn't really need to pass the ball as much against Ohio State. Will we this year? I don't know. But I was confident going in. Definitely worried, but confident.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, last year's game, I am going to recap it just very briefly. Michigan beat Ohio State 42-27 at the Big House. At the time, Michigan was ranked number 5. Ohio State was ranked number 2. That was Ohio State's second loss of the year, believe it or not, because Ohio State lost to Oregon. Don't want to talk about it as we were at that game. Not going to discuss it. C.J. Stroud, though, 394 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, averaged 8 yards an attempt. Michigan had a little bit of a 2-quarterback system. Cade McNamara in that game, 159 yards, an interception. J.J. McCarthy, 31 yards, only attempted 1 pass. But they brought J.J. McCarthy in to run 2 carries for 12 yards. But the one thing that Michigan is really known for, and you've seen it this year because I've had an opportunity to watch them play a couple times, and it's the biggest worry I have going in this weekend, Michigan can run the football. Michigan has the physicality in the run game that makes them the team that they are. Without, and this is where it gets interesting, Dustin, Blake Corum, no word on his status. He was seen on Sunday. He was limping having a hard time getting around. Michigan's bread and butter is running the football. So let's say Blake Corum isn't 100%, tries to play, and I fully expect him to try to play. Whether or not he can be effective, that's another question. How much does losing Blake Corum or having him not at 100% affect this offense? You've watched pretty much every game. How much does it affect this offense?
Well, I mean, it's huge. That's our Heisman contender. He started every game so far. Like you said, I do expect him to try. From what I understand, it's a sprained MCL, which, that can take a couple weeks, at minimum sometimes to recover from. But it also depends on our backup, Donovan Edwards. He hasn't played the last 2 games. I'm not sure what his injury is. But if he's able to play, it could, Donovan Edwards is just as talented as Blake Corum. Obviously, he's not our starter for a reason, but he is a very capable running back. But if both those guys are out, man, it's next guy up. And there's injuries plaguing your Ohio State as well. So it's not just on Michigan, but if Corum's out, it'll hurt. That's for sure. It'll hurt.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give credit. I mean, Blake, I have an opportunity to watch Blake Corum play a few times. I mean, even last year, but more so this year. Kid's fantastic. And I don't know if you would agree with this. He reminds me of Mike Hart. He really does. Very similar running style. He's short, but he's got quick burst to him. I mean, Blake Corum this year has 1,400 yards, 5.9 yards to carry, 18 touchdowns, and his PFF grade is I truly don't know if I've ever seen a running back grade this high. He has a 96 overall grade on Pro
Wow.
Football Focus. I mean, he's been fantastic this year. Now, for Buckeye fans that aren't really aware, Donovan Edwards, you really believe, like, talent-wise, he's up there with Blake Corum? He just obviously doesn't get the amount of touches that Corum does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has really developed his run game, specifically over this past year. Like last year, he was a pass catcher out of the backfield.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, and people rave about his talent at receiver, but as far as his developing his run, and he definitely has more patience than he's had in previous, last year, or even early this year. He waits for his line to develop some blocks before he hits a hole, which is, needed at certain times in the game. But he's definitely a talent. A little bit different style than Blake. Blake, I think a good comparison for Blake is J.K. Dobbins. He's very low to the ground, big old legs, will run you over. Versus Donovan is a little bit more athletic. Like I said, very good pass catcher. A little bit taller as well. Probably more speed, I would assume. But just different style.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Donovan Edwards, the fact he's only a sophomore, it just speaks to the incredible depth that these teams have. He's going to be, I assume, and I never want guys injured. You assume bearing injury, Donovan Edwards is going to be the next great Michigan running back. CJ Stokes, he's only a freshman. He's the guy that had to kind of carry the load once Blake Corum got hurt, I know. Now, talk about, because we're going to get to the Ohio State side of things, but the Michigan passing game. Now, J.J. McCarthy has looked pretty solid this year. I mean, he's got 1,900 yards, completing 66% of his passes, 7.9 yards an attempt, 14 touchdowns, 2 picks. I see a lot on Twitter because I do follow it. I mean, decent amount of Michigan fans, but I also just see comments by analysts and whatnot. How do you feel about J.J. McCarthy? I've seen a lot of people that aren't really convinced about him. Like, when he has to have a throw, you don't see him having, like, he just seems to make a mistake. Not a pick per se, just doesn't complete the pass. Like, what are your thoughts on J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, it's been worrying. The deep ball, I think I got over the first 8 games, he was completing almost 75% passer completion. And now, and that includes deep ball. But
Wow.
the last couple games, he was only hitting, I think, closer to 50%. So you can tell when we're using him more. Like, I think he threw 34 times against our previous game against Illinois. I think he threw 34 times and completed 18. So, obviously not the greatest completion percentage. But again, like in the last drive of the Illinois game, we needed him. He was the guy. Blake wasn't in there. So, and he made the throws necessary. Granted, we went on, I think we completed 2 fourth downs on that final drive to get into field goal range.
Yeah.
So he needed a couple extra plays, but as far as the short to intermediate passing, I'm not worried about as long as he's kind of in rhythm. But the deep ball is worrying. I mean, I definitely can say we have not been connecting on those deep passes, whether that's been communication issues, the receiver running a different route, or thinking it's going to be somewhere where it isn't, or it's JJ just completely missing. And as well as drops. I mean, there was 2 big drops last game against Illinois that could have completely changed the game. As far as one was a touchdown, and then another one was just a deeper, like 30-yard gain. But either way, both those were huge drops, and that can really burst your confidence as a quarterback just hitting one.
Yeah.
So two big drops that can hurt.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And The thing I was watching and I noticed a lot, one of Ohio State's weaknesses, I can say, are, and I've talked about it all year, and I still stand by it, even though it's been improved. Our corners are not very good. I still believe it. I mean, Denzel Burke's not the player he was last year by any means. Jordan Hancock's been injured. Cameron Brown's been injured. You've had a lot of injuries. The one thing I think Michigan could attack is the outer boundaries and take it deep. But I don't see, maybe I'm wrong, because I know Ronnie Bell is, I would say, the go-to guy, even though he only has 641 yards receiving. Who is the deep threat for Michigan? Because I watch, again, I watched Illinois, I've watched some other games. I don't see who the deep ball guy is. Ronnie Bell strikes me as more of a guy who's in the slot. He has those medium completions and medium targets. He's not your deep threat. Who is the deep ball threat for Michigan? Is the thing they just don't have a consistent one? Is that what it seems like to you?
That is what it seems like. I would definitely agree with you that Ronnie Bell is not a deep threat. He's a lot more of a finesse guy. He's gonna, like you said, get a 10-yard in. He'll get a slant thrown his way. And he is our go-to guy. He's our main receiver. But as far as a deep ball, yeah, it's been just a bunch of inconsistent play. I mean, Roman Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
that's a speed guy. He can get down the field in a hurry. He's had injuries. He's had a couple drops last game. So, but outside of him, it's a whole bunch of nothing. I mean, we got Andrew Anthony. He's had glimpses of being that guy. Cornelius Johnson. Last year was a lot more of a deep ball threat than this year.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of them, I mean, that's who we're looking at. And with all those drops coming our way, I can't say, one guy in particular will be that go-to deep threat guy against Ohio State, because I do agree, you guys gave up a lot of yards in passing against Maryland, and that is your guys' defensive weakness. It's going to be interesting to see if Michigan's going to be able to take advantage of that or not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I think that's going to be a real battle for Ohio State on the side of things. Traven Henderson still in a walking boot. I don't expect him to play. I hope he doesn't play. You're a sophomore. I get you want to play in the biggest game of the year. I'm not risking an injury. I'm not. Mayan Williams is expected to be back for the Buckeyes, which is a huge lift. You still have Dalen Hayden, Jackson Smith and Jigba. JD and I said a month and a half ago he played his last game for Ohio State. Ryan Day says that's not the case. Well, looks like JD and I might be right on that one, and we took a lot of heat for that. So if you guys want to go back and see that YouTube video that we had nearly 2 months ago saying this, feel free to go check it out on the Network 216 YouTube channel. But Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's probably out. Lathan Ransom apparently now has a club on his hand because he broke his hand in the Maryland game. Still blocked the punt like nothing, like it was nothing. Still did that once he did. A lot of injuries right now for Ohio State. Players that are not 100%. No one's 100%. CJ Stroud even was banged up at the end of the Maryland game. Blake Corum, status uncertain. Donovan Edwards, status uncertain. Are there any other injuries for Michigan that Buckeye fans should be aware of besides the two at running back?
Yeah, our tight end, Shoemaker, he's been out.
Okay.
Now Eric All was the tight end at the beginning of the season. He's been out for 8 games, I believe. So this is our number 2 tight end who's hurt, Luke Shoemaker. I believe our left guard, Keegan, he's been injured. He's been out the last 2 games. Mike Morris, our best defensive end so far this year, he was out last game. Trying to think. I think that's really it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, still some key injuries, especially if you're thinking about, JJ's short passing efficiency. He's throwing the tight ends more or less than receivers. So,
yeah.
That Luke could be a big hurt for us for sure.
And an update, Matthew Jones, there's no status for him. He left on Saturday with an injury. He was seen on crutches. guard for Ohio State. I assume he's not going to play. Right. The thing that frustrates me, and I've told JD about this and our listeners, it really frustrates me with Ryan Day that he does not update you on injuries. He basically just waits till Saturday. He'll just say no update today. He
Yeah,
just refuses. Can't stand
that's the same with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is not good at giving injury updates, and I understand it to a point because it's a strategic thing. You want the competition to prepare for everything. But for the fan base acts like they're part of the team. They want to know and be supportive. So it's hard being a fan and not knowing who's going to play each week.
Yeah. Well, and that's what really frustrates me because in the NFL you have to have an injury report. If you don't list injuries, they will actually fine you. Again, college is not the NFL, but come closer to the NFL. I'll say that with NIL deals.
Yes,
but it becomes a point. I feel like at some point they have to start mandating that again. I also think this is really off topic, but it's something that's just irritated me because when we played football, man. Wow, that was a while ago. But when we played football, you would get penalized. They would actually warn you at first, but they would penalize you if you didn't have your mouth guard in.
Oh, yeah. Nobody wears their mouth guard.
No one wears a mouth guard
It's crazy. It's crazy. I've been noticing that this year, too. I was honestly shocked. And it's been like – and it's not just like receivers or cornerbacks. It's like the – like linebackers in line, like they're not wearing it either. I'm like, you guys are getting hit every single play.
It's mind-blowing that they don't require players to have their mouth guards in. And also, not that I work for USA Football, so I'm involved with youth sports, kind of setting a bad example for kids too.
Oh yeah.
It basically doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But as we're getting ready to wrap up at least this segment here, the spread for this game, and I don't like it personally. I don't because Ohio State's favored by 7.5 points at home at the Horseshoe. I don't like that. I wish it was closer because I don't like being a favorite against Michigan. I don't, especially after last year. Ohio State is at home for this game. I think, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, it's going to come down to the trenches. It always does with Ohio State versus Michigan because Michigan wants to run the ball. They want to run it and they want to create the pass off the play action. It's a pro style offense. It's what Jim Harbaugh runs, and it works. When it's effective, it works. You need a quarterback that can run that, and I think McCarthy can. Again, he struggles at some points. But would you say it's going to come down to whoever can control the line of scrimmage? Because to me, especially in offense, that's where Ohio State struggled this year, is controlling the line of scrimmage, running the ball.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I mean, you know what Michigan wants to do. They want to run it. Everybody knows what they want to do, including the defense. And it is, like you guys said, it's going to be, even though there's been so many injuries, it'll still come down to running the ball. It doesn't matter what running backs are out on both sides. It's the big guys up front will get the push. And, I believe, someone could probably fact check me on this. Like the last 18 games between Ohio State and Michigan, the team that rushed for the most yards ended up winning the game. It's some outrageous stat like that. And even if Ohio State gets their passing game going, I do believe they'll have to run the ball a little bit to win.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I think JD made a point earlier in the year, and I'm starting to agree with it. The Ohio State offense is set up with the pass and then going to the run. But what they want to do is Ryan Day also wants to run the football, and you have a lot of talented running backs. The thing Ohio State struggled with, and I still believe this, and people have tried to tell me how wrong I am, and I'm a couch coach and whatever. Ryan Day struggles as a play caller when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. He likes to run. Now, I will say it's started to improve in recent weeks, which is very encouraging. It's very vanilla on offense. Ohio State's run game is very vanilla. They don't get very creative in the ways that they're scheming in order to run the football. And I think a team against Michigan that will hurt. Now, that said, an advantage for Ohio State, there is no Aiden Hutchinson, and there is no David Ajabo, who gave Ohio State fits last year. If CJ Stroud has time to throw, Dustin, do you think your corners? This is a serious question because I haven't watched Michigan enough to know really how great your corners are. Can your corners match up one-on-one with Emeka Buka, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Julian Fleming?
No, definitely not. There's not a team in the country that can match up one-on-one with all three of your guys' receivers, including Stover at tight end. I mean, you guys have very great athletes at those positions. No, I do not think. I don't think there's any team outside of maybe Georgia, maybe. And now Michigan's key to stopping that isn't to do that. Yeah, obviously it's to get pressure on the quarterback. And now, like you said, we don't have Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabu like last year. But Mike Morris has been good. Oki has been good. The transfer. And I gotta say, shout out to Brandon Graham, freshman defensive line. That man made so many key plays last game. I mean, I was rewatching that game today, and I think there was 3 plays, one of them on 4th down, one of them on 3rd down, where he popped up, swung the guard over to the left, and tackled the running back. I mean, it looked easy, and that man is a freshman. Our defensive line play is going to have to be stellar against you guys, because we don't have that pass rush that we did last year, but I mean, we're going to have to hit CJ Stroud hard and early for him to get out of his rhythm, be uncomfortable back in that pocket. And whether that's keying some blitzes early or just getting pressure with our 4-man front, I'm not as confident with that. I think we're going to have to blitz to get to you guys. I don't think we'll be able to get pressure as much with the 4-man like we did last year.
And the one thing that CJ Stroud struggles with, and I've said it all year, it's what's going to hurt him as an NFL prospect. It's something that can be improved, just takes time. He is not a guy. Now, I will say they've ran him a little bit more, especially that Northwestern game, because I think they had to. CJ Stroud is not – if things break down, he is not normally the best quarterback at improvising and making a play. He is not Bryce Young. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, the difference is Bryce Young can create his own. CJ Stroud cannot. CJ Stroud needs to be on schedule. He needs things scripted to be very successful. And that's why I don't personally think he'll be the number 1 pick in the draft. I thought earlier, but as I've watched him this year, I just don't see. I think Bryce Young's going to get it based off where the NFL is trending. But that's where you guys can make CJ Stroud uncomfortable. If you can get pressure on him, if you can get him off his game a little bit, he's going to get flustered. I can tell you he is, and it's understandable why he targets him as much. He really looks for Marvin Harrison Jr. If you can limit Marvin Harrison Jr., it's going to force him to go to Abuka and not Fleming. Oh, no. That sounds awful. But what I'm saying, his most comfortable target is Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the sleeper in this game is the hometown Lexington kid, Cade Stover. I really do. I think Ohio State having a tight end in this game changes everything because you now have 4 guys, and we're not even talking the running back, 4 guys in the passing game that can beat you. Last year, they did not feature Jeremy Ruckert. They feature Cade Stover this year, and I think it can cause problems for Michigan. That said, the spread is 7.5. First, is that spread covered? Is that spread covered? Also, your prediction for Saturday, and then we're going to get into our college football picks for this week, playoff picks.
I think the spread is covered. I think that's a good spread though. I do. Okay. Ohio State's at home. I think if Ohio State does win, I think they'll win probably by a touchdown or more. But I do think the spread is covered. I haven't actually put points to on the field for Saturday. I haven't thought about that much. I would say probably if Michigan is to pull this one out, and obviously I'm hoping for it, but I'd say it would be very close to the score last year. I'm thinking, 40 to 30. It'd be around there. Obviously that's a weird score, but
no, I mean it's possible. I mean, and do you have Michigan winning this game? 40-30?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
have Michigan winning this game. Yes.
Okay. All right. I do think Ohio State is going to cover this spread. I just at some point I think this game is going to be close, and I just see the Buckeyes are a better second half team than they are first half. It's been that way all year. It pisses me off. I don't like it. One thing Ohio State does, they play down to their competition, but also they play up to their competition. This is the game they've been waiting for. Ryan Day said the gloves are off. This is it. Like everything's on the table this game because not only this game determines potentially the Big Ten champion and who represents the Big Ten, the college football playoff, which we will get to, and that's going to be a great conversation. Ryan Day is coaching for his job. Ryan Day cannot go 2 years in a row without beating Michigan, the Big Ten title, and being in a college football playoff. If that's the case, he will go into next year on the hot seat. I'm calling it right now. He said Ohio State, you come here and it's championship or bust. You got to put your money where your mouth is. So I think Ohio State is going to cover. I think some points are going to be scored in this game. I'm with you as far as like point total a little bit. I'm going to go with Ohio State 38, Michigan 27, 38-27. I don't see the one thing about Michigan. If Blake Corum is out of this game, I don't see how Michigan can consistently put up points. That's just my personal opinion. Because like I don't think McCarthy can get into a shootout with CJ Stroud. I don't. Michigan does not have the weapons that Ohio State does on offense. But again, it's going to be a great game. I can't wait for it. I know you're excited too. But before we end this episode, we're going to take about 15, 20 minutes here. We got to talk college football playoff. But before we do, we have to take a second and hear from our wonderful sponsor with Homage.
What's up, guys? We've been talking about Homage for a really long time, but I can't get across how comfortable the products are. Like, this is literally the softest hoodie that you'll ever have. And it's not just about, comfort when it comes to the style. It's effective as well. It keeps you warm. I mean, look, this thing is not, it's all vintage looking, but it's looked like this. I've owned this thing for 5 years. So you got Ohio State, you got the Browns, you got the Cavs, you got the Guardians. They've got everything to have you covered all year long for all your Cleveland sports. I know the Victory Monday thing's a little brutal this year, but we got all kinds of awesome designs. You got to check them out. We'll put a link. There's always links in all of our episodes in the descriptions and sometimes in the comments as well. They're the best on the market, man. You I don't even know what to say anymore, but go over there, check out Homage today. Go Cavs.
All right, man. We're going to end the show. To me, this is always the most fun part. Now the college football playoff is back. I love talking Ohio State, but one thing I love talking about is the college football playoff, and it's going to change a lot this week. You had a lot of teams that stumbled. I mean, Tennessee and Hendon Hooker, that's an awful story. We hope he heals up as quickly as possible. He's probably not going to see the field as an NFL quarterback until he's 25. Sad. It really is that he's having to deal with that. That was a huge game, Tennessee losing. But I just overall, I mean, there were a lot of games that teams struggled this week in the top four. Georgia only beat Kentucky by 10. Ohio State won by 13, but it was obviously a lot closer. Michigan won by 2. TCU won by a game winner. I mean, this week for the college football playoff, what are you expecting to see? Because we're at the point, we talked about utter chaos for a Big Ten team to get 2 teams into this. JD and I did. I'm at the point now, the way things are going, if this game is close, the loser might get into the college football playoff. Like, what are your thoughts on we're not going to get predictions yet, but what are just your overall thoughts on what's happening around college football right now?
Well, you said it, chaos. And like you said, I'm happy because I would love to see 2 Big Ten teams make the playoffs. I'm obviously a Michigan fan, but I love the Big Ten. I mean, I really think it deserves it. I think Michigan and Ohio State are both in the top 4 teams, win or lose Saturday. I mean, now whether you can put 1 or the 2 in would probably depend on the final score and if anybody got dominated. But like you said, I mean, Georgia was the biggest surprise. I thought they would dominate Kentucky, and only winning by 10 points was a surprise. It definitely was. TCU, they're kind of everybody calls them the comeback kids. So, I mean, they play better from behind, whatever it is. And that showed. And then finally USC. I mean, they lost early against Utah, I believe it was, at Utah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the UCLA quarterback turned it over 3 times, had 3 interceptions, and I mean that the USC defense isn't anything to rave about. But I mean, you make a good quarterback like that turn the ball over 3 times. I mean, you got something to hang your hat on.
Yeah. One thing I noticed from this week, everybody was looking ahead. Every single team was looking at Ohio State, Michigan. Were the kings of that. They were looking ahead in next week's matchup. Again, it's human nature. It's very difficult to focus on the team in front of you. Now, people talk about TCU being the weak team of the 4. I have to say this because, and again, I'm not saying TCU is a juggernaut by any means. At the end of the day, what matters is you win, survive in advance. They're doing it. Again, that's all you have to do. You just have to survive in advance. TCU, I think they're in a good position to run the table. I really do. I think you're looking at a Big 12 championship game against Texas. They've already beaten them. That would be in a neutral site, so I think it could be worse for Texas. I mean, as far as Georgia, I'm not a huge fan of Stetson Bennett. I've said for a while, I don't think he's that great. It's nothing against the kid. I just don't think he's an elite level quarterback. He doesn't necessarily need to be, because I just think the rest of their team is just really good. So Georgia, I think, is a given to make it unless LSU runs the table. This is where things get just nuts. So as of right now, Tennessee is out. They're done. Tennessee's done. Utah is done, I assume. But now, man, you're having a scenario, and this is what it pains me because I don't want to say it, but we know how the committee loves the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at a situation. Let's say Georgia, undefeated, they're in, obviously. LSU's out. Let's say Michigan, Ohio State. Let's say Ohio State or Michigan, one of them gets blown out. That other team is out. Right there, with 2 losses, Alabama is there. And this week, they will be ranked probably at number 7. You're in a situation, man, I don't like saying it because I just can't stand Alabama. Alabama's right there. He won't be an SEC champion, but I don't want any more chaos. I want everyone that should win just to win, because I don't want Alabama in this thing. Because I don't know about you, man. I think they have a dark horse chance of getting in because there's just so much chaos right now. And either way, if LSU wins out, beats Georgia, you have to put them in, don't you? You have to put in a 2-loss SEC champion. Or what are your thoughts on LSU? Because they seem to be the wild card in all this.
They definitely are. If they beat Georgia in the SEC championship and don't slip up, obviously Saturday, you have to put them in. I mean, you have to put them in. You have to put Georgia in, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, and then if TCU wins out, I mean, there's no way you can't put them in. I mean, they beat the number 1 team that was the number 1 team all year, and then you also, and then they beat Alabama head to head. Their bad loss, obviously, to Tennessee. But even that was earlier in the season. You develop, you get better as the season goes on, and I hope the committee takes that into consideration if LSU does win.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think they will. Personally, I think Georgia will beat them. Mm-hmm. That's a good team to beat. Even if Georgia's looking at the playoffs and not the SEC championship, I could see Georgia blowing them out of the water.
Yeah, and the thing about LSU is, I don't know if you knew this, because a lot of people don't. LSU, let's say they went out and they're in, they would be the first team to make the playoff with 2 losses, which would be kind of incredible if you think about it. So, okay, LSU with 2 losses. The other team that's right there, and I don't like this team either. Clemson's there with 1 loss.
Yes, they are.
And I don't think they're good. I don't. I've seen enough. I don't think DJ Ugalele, and I actually said his name right, so I can't believe it. He's not good. They have a freshman quarterback who they seem not want to play, right? I don't know why. Really good running back, and I can't think of his name, and I'm not going to look it up because I don't care enough. So Clemson's right there. You're looking at probably an ACC title game appearance. They'd be ACC champs. The ACC is not loaded by any means. They'd still probably face a ranked opponent and have a win. Does Clemson fit into this picture at all to you? I don't want them in. I don't, but with the way things are going, again, if we see chaos, let's say TCU loses, which is Texas is not great, but they're not a super bad team either. No. So let's say TCU falters. Is Clemson back in this thing too?
Definitely. I mean, I don't see how you can't include them. I mean, if they win out, like you said, that's another ranked win on their resume, whoever they beat in the ACC championship. And if TCU or even USC slip up, I mean, that's two guys with 2 losses right there. And I mean, you can't, TCU only 1 loss, but you can't, there's an argument to put Clemson over a 2-loss USC, a 3-loss LSU, and then maybe even a 1-loss TCU. TCU, if they do slip up, I mean, that'll be a great argument for the committee. Is a Big 12 champ, or if they lose in the Big 12 championship, a 1-loss Big 12 school going to be better than a 1-loss ACC school, that won their conference. I mean,
yeah.
If TCU loses their conference, I don't think you can put them in, especially above a Clemson. Only 1-loss Clemson. But I think outside of TCU, USC, if USC loses 1 more, that makes real chances for Clemson, because the way I see it, LSU will probably lose. And that automatically puts Clemson in front of LSU. Mm-hmm. So, you could see Clemson still make it in there. I think they have a better chance than Alabama.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you're looking at Clemson's ACC title opponent being North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Drake May, North Carolina. And I'll tell you, never been a North Carolina fan. I don't like that color, but I just don't like North Carolina in general. Drake May is for real. The kid is a great quarterback. Clemson might struggle with them. I don't want to see Clemson in this. I don't want to see Alabama in this, but they still seem to have a chance. And USC is the team. I told JD this last week. If they win, because at the time, USC was not really positioned very well. But I said, USC wins out, they have a chance. They have to be in, because you have a win over UCLA. You would have a win over Notre Dame, Notre Dame has come on strong to end the year, which is looking great for Ohio State, by the way. So
yeah, it is.
shout out to Marcus Freeman over there. They would have a win over Notre Dame, and you're looking at a Pac-12 championship game, probably against Oregon. If USC wins out, in my mind, they're in. I'll even say this. I think they have to be in. You can't, regardless of what happens with Ohio State, Michigan, I don't think you can keep a 1-loss. I don't think you can put in a 1-loss Big Ten team over USC. I just don't, because USC would have, like I said, I told you those wins. You're playing Oregon. You're playing at this point Oregon probably, or Washington in the title game. I mean, I think that's good enough to get in. And I think secretly the committee wants college football wants USC back in the playoff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. College football is better when USC is good, for sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on USC? I mean, I told you guys, the job that Lincoln Riley has done, and just, again, transfers help. Getting Caleb Williams, obviously, Jordan Addison, is huge. It's still not easy to turn around a program like that, install your scheme, get some of your players in there and be contending for a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see it. I didn't see it happening this year. Maybe next year, I thought. I definitely thought before the season started USC would have a couple losses by now at least. But that UCLA win was big. I mean, UCLA has their issues, but the I'm spacing on his name right now. The USC quarterback.
Oh, Caleb Williams.
Williams,
who very well might win the Heisman Trophy.
I was going to say Heisman contender. That man can throw the ball, and there's nobody in college football that is more valuable to their team right now than him. I mean, you can debate Blake Corum with Michigan. You can debate C.J. Stroud with Ohio State, but as far as that has really carried their team, nobody.
Oh, it's close. It's Caleb Williams. I tweeted the other day. I said Caleb Williams, if he's in this draft class, he's the number one pick. He just does things at quarterback that there was a throw that he made. He's rolling to his left, fading away, and throws just an insane bullet right in the right money. And someone's like, "Oh, he wouldn't be." I didn't bother to waste time with those people. Like, those are people who just don't know football. Caleb Williams is a special talent, and USC. Jordan Addison's there. I mean, they have talent. If they get in the college football playoff, I'm not saying they'll beat Georgia because they're probably a 4. They're probably your team at number 4. TCU would be 3 in this scenario, either Ohio State, Michigan 2, Georgia 1. USC would challenge from the aspect they have players that will give you headaches. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with USC, and I do think Odell wanted to be heard. Not Odell Beckham, for those of you that are listening. My dog's name is Odell. Kind of took an L on that one. But anyway, Dustin. All right, man. Give your 5 and 6, and then give your top 4, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Is this playoff prediction or playoff rankings? Is this playoff rankings for this week? Or is
let's stick with this week. Let's stick with this week because that's normally what JD and I do. And we just might have a college football playoff preview show, maybe. And if we do, we'll try and get you back on so we can, because that'd be a lot of fun. Anyway, okay, yeah, for this week, what do you think the committee does? Okay,
so 5 and 6. I got 6 LSU and 5 USC. I don't think you can put LSU in front of USC with that big win that they just had. And I think that foreshadows the future, that if USC wins out, they could make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then your top 4.
Top 4 stay the same. Georgia, OSU, Michigan, TCU. All 4 teams really had nail biters. And nobody really looked great. And so, I don't see, you could probably argue to change up, maybe, swap OSU or Michigan or swap TCU and Michigan. But I think it's the same. I think they got the top 4 teams right now.
Yeah. So we're actually going to completely agree on this. Rare that I completely agree with anybody, but 6 and 5, I don't see, like you said, that win over UCLA is huge. I don't care where UCLA might have been. It's a rivalry win for one. It's a top 25 opponent. It's on the road, even though it was in California. Still a road game for USC. LSU should be 6. They should. You're playing UAB. No disrespect to UAB because they're actually a pretty decent mid-major program ever since they brought their football program back. But you're playing UAB before your season finale, dude. Like, get out of here. No, that's ridiculous.
That's not good. I was actually
playing Austin Perry.
Yeah, that's horrible. They're and that's what Joel Klatt had a good. He said something about it on air when it was UCLA live, and he said, I listened to his podcast earlier today. He said, wouldn't you wish Hooker for Tennessee was playing UAB or Austin, whoever. I mean, he probably wouldn't be hurt this week. You know, he probably wouldn't have got hurt against a UAB team. I mean, that's, you know, that may not be true. He could have still got hurt, but it's just you're almost resting your players without having to rest your players. You know, it's a bye week. It's almost a bye week. So,
Exactly.
and this far in November, you know, again, I'm sure Ohio State, Michigan, TCU would have loved to play a cupcake game this late in the season. And to Joel's point, I think the schedule needs to be preset. I think if you have cupcake games, you know, make them at the beginning of the year or make them at the end of the year. I don't care. Just make the schedule even for everybody. You know, you're not having an Alabama who, you know, granted they will have 2 losses and probably won't make the playoffs this year, but if they only had 1 loss or if they were undefeated, they just had a bye week but right before a SEC championship. That's I don't think you can say that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's really ridiculous. But yeah, LSU 6, USC is 5. I want to be bold and say they should be 4 because I personally think after that they should be, given the schedule they've played compared to TCU, but they won't be. USC will be 5, TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia. Those are our college football playoff predictions for this week. I want to thank everyone that tuned into this episode of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. It's going to be a big week. It is the game that we wait for all year. So I appreciate everyone tuning into this episode. Remember, if you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook and you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're entered in for exclusive giveaways that we have available only to our YouTube subscribers. But also, drop a like on the video. That way you can help Network 216 really grow as a network and our channel grow as well. You're going to want to tune into Down with the Browns. They have Browns therapy for you right after we get off the air. And believe me, we need a lot more in therapy these days. Maybe like a whole glass of bleach. Anyway, this has been the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Thank you all for tuning in, and go Bucks.
Go Blue.